The final was between Sydney surfers and the lone local Luke Faunce from Avoca. For Luke, though, not his day, as his rivals from the Big Smoke proved too strong in the four-man final. The final came down to a showdown between well-performed Queenscliff surfer Merrick Davis and Glenn Pringle from Allura. Davis in the yellow, however, was to pose no threat to Pringle, renowned for knocking Martin Potter out of Surfest a couple of years ago. And today Pringle was devastating, winning every heat, and in the final made it a one-horse race to snare the coveted crown of Matara champion. On Newcastle Harbour, the second day of the Port Hunter 16-foot skiff championships, and again a victory for Sydney. Former 18-foot skipper Trevor Barnabas guided his boat Chesty Bond Tuyui to a well-deserved win from the well-performed Belmont 16-footer Castrian Holmes, sailed by John Millwood. Filling the minor placings was Gary Brunninger's Beechwood Holmes 2. Sean Scanlon off 11 metres had too much start for his rivals in the Hawkins Pro Sprint at Spears Point, outlasting his opposition. The judges couldn't separate the minor place getters, Brad Schrader and Drew Madison, dead heating for second.
Late afternoon, and for almost a week, David White has been pounding the pavement. He's walked 174 kilometres, and so far so good.
I had a few leg problems at the start, like muscular, but nothing serious like strains. But this leg we've caught us now between Woodburn and McLean, it's just the feet are a bit sore, like blisters and things like that. But no, we're soldiering on.
Inspired by the Queensland floods earlier this year and the deaths of his grandmother and closest friend, David says he wanted to do something positive.
Well, I didn't have a really good start to the year, and I said, I don't want to make it a sick year or just mope around. So I said, I'll do something. The Queensland floods just came to mind, and Brisbane to Sydney.
All the money raised from David's 878-kilometre walk will go to charity.
Well, 60% of it goes to the Rotary Health Fund, which in the end will hopefully assist homeless kids and towards children's medical research. That's 60% whatever we make. And the other 40% will go to the rescue helicopter appeal.
A small group of faithful Wallsend Hospital supporters gathered today to hear details of the miners' bid to reopen the building.
There will be a commercial syndicate put in place made up of Newcastle doctors, Manchester Unity and a outpatients fund that will be restarted and operated from the Hunter Miners Hospital.
The United Mine Workers has appointed the former head of the Hunter Area Health Service, Dr. Owen James, as an honorary advisor. They hope Dr. James's expertise will help them win their bid. The miners also have the support of the Labor Party. Andrew Refshorgi today urged the Greiner government to consider the proposal.
It certainly gives very strong hope for the people who want improved health services in this area, but also, I believe, looks at a commercial way of doing it so that it can be possible within budgets.
During the meeting, a supporter of the hospital raised concern about the miners' plan to reopen Wallsend as a hospital predominantly for privately insured patients.
We need a private income that will be generated from the insured beds in order for us to provide the maximum amount of uninsured public community health services.
Ron Land plans to discuss the miners' bid with Health Minister Ron Phillips in a fortnight. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
At 29 years of age, Pat Farmer is ranked number 2 in the world at ultramarathon distances up to 1,600 kilometres. But it's the first time he, or anyone else for that matter, has tackled the 5,670 kilometre East Coast run.
There's very few fields of endeavour these days that people can still be pioneers in, and this is probably the only one that I could think of, and so I decided I'd like to set a mark on this one.
Pat set off from Thursday Island 10 weeks ago with 3 aims: to raise $100,000 for diabetes research, conduct 20,000 tests for the disease along the way, and raise awareness in general about the problem.
I wanted to do it for diabetes because I have an aunt, both an aunt and an uncle that suffer from diabetes, and I could see the need for people to learn a lot more about diabetes and become a lot more familiar with it.
A landscape gardener by trade, Pat has taken 12 months to organise sponsorship so all money raised can go to the cause. But there has been a lot of personal preparation as well.
Matt, I've been running between 350 to 400 kilometres per week in training to get myself physically fit for this event. It's been really tough over the last year.
Pat breezed into Newcastle today for a City Hall reception, but by now will be well south of Swansea. Donations can be left with the Commonwealth Bank, care of Diabetes Australia, Pat Farmer run.
Government bus drivers are part of a federal association, just one of the unions affected by a bans clause the government hopes the Federal Industrial Commission will insert into their award.
The employer is seeking the bans clause in the award, which would allow them to seek damages in the High Court if we went ahead with the strike on the 23rd.
It would also stop union members striking over the proposed industrial reforms for the next 3 months. Dave Winwood believes that the move by the government is an overkill.
This is a one-off 24-hour strike, and we have the government running off to the courts trying to take out clauses against us, stopping us and threatening us with damages and all this sort of stuff. It's a real knee-jerk reaction.
Justice Peterson is currently considering the matter and is expected to be influenced by the State Industrial Commission's ruling that it's illegal for public sector unions to take part in the strike. But local drivers say that if they're not allowed to strike over the industrial reforms, they'll find another issue and will be out on Wednesday no matter what.
We may not be striking over the same issue as everyone else, but we'll be participating in the general strike. If we have to use some sort of loophole and say we're on strike over another issue, well, that's not a problem because there's plenty of other issues going on at the moment to go on strike over.
Alison Peters, NBN News.
The strike that will bring the state to a virtual standstill will also halt nearly all local government services in the Hunter. There will be no garbage collections and tips will be closed apart from Newcastle City Council's Shortland site. Libraries and swimming pools will be shut except for Newcastle and Port Stephens Council's facilities. Public transport grinds to a halt. Newcastle City Rail ceases services tonight. General Manager Colin Cowell is fearful that some commuters could be stranded in Sydney if they don't catch the last train from Central at 7:55.
Hopeful that all people will be able to catch that train.
Newcastle buses are also off the road and the ferries will be idle. You'd think the taxi drivers would be delighted about the strike, but even they're not smiling.
I think there'll be a bit extra work around, but I don't expect a great deal. Most people make other arrangements and some people just won't go to work.
Aero Pelican and Williamtown airports say flight schedules will be unaffected, but the waterfront will be silent. The Hunter Ports Authority says there'll be no movement on the harbour. While the strike might be poison to the state government, it's heaven sent for the shopping centres, which are remaining open.
I'm expecting a very big day tomorrow. There's a lot of people going to be out and about. They're going to be looking for something to do tomorrow.
Most banks will be open, except for the State Bank. Nearly all its Hunter branches will join the strike. For those looking for some entertainment, the major cinemas will be open, but the curtain comes down for the day at the Civic Playhouse.
With the 91 season over, 23 Knights headed north for a private holiday. Two of those players, Peter Johnston and fellow front rower Jason Hoogerwerf, were found with cannabis in their motel rooms and appeared before Cairns Magistrates Court. The two players were charged with possession of a dangerous drug and with possession of a pipe to smoke the drug. They pleaded guilty and were each fined $330.
It's most disappointing because it hasn't been our best year from an off-the-field performance basis as well as an on-the-field performance basis. So to have this happen now is, of course, gives us great concern.
It's Johnston's second drug-related matter. Earlier this year, he appeared before Newcastle Court on charges of marijuana cultivation. Knights chief Mike Armstrong says Johnston has been cut from the team on matters not related to the latest controversy. Hoogerwerf is still involved in negotiations. The club will follow up with an investigation into the tour, including allegations of $300 worth of damage to a Cairns motel room.
So far, the Submarine Corporation has signed a preliminary agreement with the Philippines Navy, but the whole project is yet to gain approval from the government over there, and that is a major hurdle. ASC Chairman Don Williams says the deal for three 370-tonne patrol boats would be worth more than $200 million. They'd be built at Tomago at the former Carrington Slipways, purchased by the Submarine Corporation from the Commonwealth Bank last July. The corporation's aim is to become involved in shipbuilding on the East Coast, and the Philippines contract would get it started. The prospect also excites the local branch of the Chamber of Manufacturers.
The kind of work that we'd be seeing would be things like steel fabrication, welding, there'd be some design and drawing work, I should imagine. And I would hope that that the majority of the contract could be spent here in the Hunter.
The deal includes a Canberra-backed finance package, but that also is yet to be approved by the industry and defence ministers. Despite all this, the Submarine Corporation remains confident the deal will go through.
Police investigators searched through the ashes today looking for clues as to what caused the fire. Late yesterday afternoon, workers at the Parkville Piggery noticed smoke pouring through a vent in one of 5 sheds. Within minutes, the building was a ball of flames. Fire officers say the polyurethane insulation was a volatile fuel for the blaze. It's believed the 605-week-old piglets were suffocated by the poisonous fumes. The building was destroyed. The total damage bill more than $300,000. Today, the piglet carcasses were buried in a giant pit and covered with lime. But the tragedy may have been far worse. The shed was only half stocked. Another 600 animals could have easily been victims. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Of all the creatures, great and small, in Australia, none gets the same warm reaction as the koala. But the Native Animal Trust Fund warns that the koala faces a cold and uncertain future in the Hunter.
It's quite serious, actually. We're losing habitat each day.
The fund asserts that the Tillageri Peninsula in Port Stephens is one of the hardest hit koala habitats. In the past 24 years, the bush that is home to the marsupials has shrunk by more than half. The Trust Fund says by far the largest threat to koalas is housing development. The urban sprawl brings cars and dogs, two of the biggest killers of koalas. In the past week alone, 5 koalas have been attacked by dogs. That comes on top of the devastating effects of the Black Wednesday bushfires.
With these fires it's gone through, it's very severe, and of course with the development for housing, that was bad enough, but now with the fires, well, I don't understand how the koala's going to cope this year.
To make the public aware of the threatened existence of one of its cuddliest assets, the fund has helped organise Koala Week. Among those on the contact list for fundraising, the Hunters Development Companies.
what we're going to do is see if they will come to part with some funding for us to set up better facilities, help pay for research, and maybe one day have a koala hospital in the Port Stephens area.
As the Lord Mayor prepared to leave on his controversial trip to Japan today, he fired a parting shot at two of the region's councils.
It's frightfully short-sighted of Port Stephens Council and Lake Macquarie Council not to send a senior member of that council to the seminar.
The tourism conference in Tokyo is being organised by NID, the builders of the Horizons Resort at Salamander Bay. Alderman John McNaughton has defended his attendance at the seminar. He believes thousands of jobs could be created if Japanese companies could be enticed to invest in Hunter Valley resorts.
The opportunity of speaking to those companies is of absolutely fundamental importance to us.
Meanwhile, there has been some good news on the economic front, with the Hunter Valley Research Foundation reporting continued growth in tourist accommodation and a rise in residential building approvals in the region. Jane Anderson, NBN News. Newcastle-born singer Sue Cruikshank prodded and poked those who were a little reluctant to take the plunge. The Deputy Commissioner of the Tax Department, Graham Doherty, decided to investigate at first hand the bottom of the harbour. Alderman Don Geddes stripped before he made waves. As BHP boss Paul Jeans walked the plank, the band offered some encouragement with a rendition of Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. Newcastle's passing parade of good sports weren't just entertaining the crowd. The event raised money for the financially troubled steamship William IV. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Struggling to put the ball in the hoop. Oh, that time ball. Good ball inside to Neil Turner. Comes around the back. Good move by the youngster. Another ball here. Let's go. Alternate lines. Okay, Neil's going to demonstrate. And what?
Openers Jeff Milliken and Michael Slater put on 100 before lunch. When Slater went for 60, big hitting Justin Kenny kept the momentum going. Leg spinner Trent Park bowled well early, but when his line and length began to stray, Kenny began blasting. 14 from this over brought up a quick-fire 50. Paceman Kevin Bray was brought on as the partnership reached 100, and he didn't let his skipper down. Milliken was a victim of the Devils number 87, a knock that included 13 boundaries. Another bowling change saw Steve Mace come on from the southern end. This time Kenny lost concentration on 82. The Blues declared at 3 for 291. Shortly before stumps, Newcastle were none for 46 in their second innings. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News. A superb 107 from opener David Marjorie Banks put the locals in the box seat, and a dashing knock from Paul Dyson consolidated the position. He too looked set for a ton until this wild slash. Newcastle declared at 6 for 261, leaving the Blues a target of 304 from a minimum of 45 overs. David Willis rattled those plans in the fourth over. Martin Haywood replaced Davison at the crease, but 3 scorching Yorkers in a row from Willis found a way through his defence. At 2 for 26, the Blues were backpedalling. Hopes of a Jeff Milliken-led recovery were crushed by a hostile Kevin Bray. The departure of skipper Randall Green soon after ended any thoughts of a win by the visitors. The tension took its toll on Justin Kenny, run out just after the tea break. The Novocastrians poured on the pressure with a ring of close-in fieldsmen and wrapped up the win with 168 runs to spare. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
The battle to save the Tingara Centre was one unforgettable image seared into memories of Black Wednesday. Thankfully, the infants at the centre escaped the blaze, but the building and its sensory garden suffered extensive damage, estimated at almost $500,000. Although the centre is insured, it will take months to repair. The New South Wales Institute for Deaf and Blind Children was determined to go ahead with the formal opening ceremony today, despite the ravages of the bushfire. State Governor Rear Admiral Peter Sinclair paid tribute to the resilience of staff in the face of disappointment. Ironically, the formalities were threatened not by fire but by rain today. However, the Governor still had time to inspect the building, which serves almost 70 visually and hearing impaired preschoolers in the Hunter. Centre Director Joan Madison says the fires came perilously close to destroying the $2.5 million centre.
I guess we didn't have too much thought about the building in the beginning. We closed windows and tried to secure it, but our main thought was to get the remaining children out and staff out, and it all happened very quickly, so we were very fortunate that everyone was safe and got out safely.